Recording. So this is Gerard Daché with the Government Blockchain Association. Welcome everybody to the blockchain and supply chain event that we're doing. We've got some great speakers. We're going to turn the floor over to Joel Neidig. So Joel, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about who you are, tell us about SIMBA chain and what you guys are doing in supply chain.
Sure. Thanks, Gerard. Appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me today. Can I share my screen? Is that
absolutely
okay? Awesome.
And Joel, when you're done, if you email me anything you want to, I'll put a link to a Dropbox folder so people, in fact, anybody on the call, if you want to send me something, we can make it available to all the participants afterwards.
Sure. It says somebody else is sharing, so I have to wait until they're sharing.
Sorry about that. I just stopped sharing.
Oh no, it's okay. So yeah, once again, we've been a GBA sponsor for, I think it's been 3 years now, Gerard. I lost track, but yeah, so we've been excited to be a member of GBA and super excited to see it grow and support the user groups and the working groups. So many people don't know about maybe not know have heard about SIMBA chain, and SIMBA chain is not a blockchain. So if the name is misleading, sorry about that. So, but SIMBA chain, we really are just focused on making blockchain really user friendly and easy for people. So it's a low code platform. So we started from a DARPA phase 1 SIBR grant back in 2017, and my co-founder and me, Dr. Ian Taylor from the University of Notre Dame, just said, hey, blockchain was extremely complicated for, normal users. Even if you're a programmer, getting into blockchain, you have to there's a lot of things you have to learn about. So it's been 3 years now. We've been awarded over $15 million in government contracts. So we have multiple implementations into Fortune 500 companies, Dow Chemical, Caterpillar. And then we also have a large educational platform that we go around and help a lot of universities start learning how to build smart contracts. And we have a really easy WYSIWYG and drag and drop, kind of like Visio from a smart contract generation standpoint. So, and then we have a lot of things coming out with badges and certs, verifiable credentials, and decentralized identities. But our biggest clients are actually supply chain. So a lot of the Navy and Air Force are using us from a supply chain risk management standpoint and traceability. And so we have the first authority to operate inside the Navy. And so that's kind of a big deal as far as blockchain goes. So we have a very sophisticated infrastructure that's been being deployed out through different government agencies. And you probably wonder, like, why do governments, why would anybody build a blockchain like a permission blockchain? It's like, doesn't make any sense. But actually, there's a lot of agencies that don't really trust each other, even within the government. So, and then if defense logistics agencies, like one of the largest suppliers in the world, their GDP, they kind of dwarf the GDP of most small nations. So DLA is massive, and they supply Air Force, Navy, Army, and it's a pretty big outfit. But trying to provide that trust layer back in between the different logistics, the depots, and even suppliers. So we're actually connecting Boeing supplying networks to with DLA, with Navy, with Air Force, and those different things. But our architecture is wrapped in auth. We have so it's really easy. If you go to app.simbachain.com, you can it's completely free. And the SIMBA chain model. So we have the smart contract designer, virtual application APIs, transaction validation resilience. So if you've ever tried to deploy consensus quorum, or if you're doing Hyperledger Fabric or these other things, just handling the asynchronization and things behind that is does take a lot of work if you want a really enterprise application. We also provide versioning of your smart contracts. We have a transaction cache that you can query, which we'll get into how that works. And then search and access APIs, dashboards, SDKs. You can go to our website. We have on our documentation page, we have every type of SDK you can think of. And we have a way of off-chaining, so printing a secure fingerprint on-chain, but you have that reference off-chain securely linked data. So what we look, so going from left to right. Yeah.
Joe, can I throw one thing?
Go ahead.
Your solution is free. You got essentially a free version, so people can. All the stuff you're showing them is not necessarily just a sales thing. People can actually engage with this right off the bat. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we are a freemium platform, and you can just log in at app.simbachain.com, create your user account. Our badges and certs are getting ready to launch, so you'll be able to monetize that if you want to do training and put your own logo on there, and you can certify people on whatever, it might not be blockchain, it might be other things that you are really excellent at. You can provide that cert on the blockchain back to somebody, and they can handle that. So that'll be deployed to Ethereum to begin with, but we'll be allowing other you can launch to other blockchains because we support Binance Smart Chain, Hyperledger Fabric, Stellar, RSK. So we have a lot of different bindings to our platform. To different users have different needs for different blockchains. But yeah, going left to right, we have our supply chain tracking, and then we have a graph annotated smart contract APIs. Like I said, the versioning capability behind that. And we really focus on an asset and transaction model. So looking at, we call assets the nouns, and transactions are the verbs. And you can really see how that flows in a digital workflow space. And then you have a custom API that's then generated for you. And that's all through Swagger 3.0. And then obviously any blockchain, and then complex queries and insights, so that you can, and we'll get into GraphQL searching across many blockchains here shortly. So I don't want to take up all the time today, so I'll kind of breeze through some of these to get into the actual use cases that we're doing. But once again, this is our graph-based model, and providing that REST API and generating those methods and parameters. So we bind to the smart contract method calls, so that you can even, and I'll get into how we have Truffle Suite integration. So we just demoed our stuff at TruffleCon recently, which Truffle just got acquired by Consensus, which was just brand new news today. So they were in Consensus, and then they were on their own, and then Consensus acquired them back. So we have an extensible graph model, like I mentioned. So it's a scalable solution, and really sustainable to what enterprises are really looking for from a life cycle management standpoint. Our purpose, once again, is low code, zero code approach. We have integration with Microsoft Power Apps. So if you're familiar with Power Apps, it's like 260 different connections. So we have a full line where you can generate your connectivity, and it auto generates a smart contract that can go on the blockchain that connects back to the Power App that you built. So upgradable new smart contracts and language versions. So the Truffle Suite provides the expert mode. So SIMBA, our IDE in the cloud is not like super sophisticated. It's like drag and drop build, but then you can go into Truffle mode and do like some really expert, what everybody does. Everybody uses Truffle when you're thinking about smart contract designing. And so once again, it's our Visio models style drag and drop. So you can create an asset transaction model. This is an example of an additively manufactured component. And then you can define those parameter sets in the application, and then it auto generates the Solidity code for you. Then what you do is you just go to your network, and you can go to Ethereum. Circle of Life is our own private permission network, but you can deploy to Rinkeby or Coven, or you can go to all kinds of different, like I said, we have Binance Smart Chain, we have RSK, Hyperledger, Fabric and Burrow, and Stellar is orthogonal to these blockchains. So we have a different designer because it has set operations, how Stellar works. Then you define, you can do off-chaining. because not everything needs to be stored on a blockchain. And then you choose the smart contract application. We support multiple smart contracts per app, so you can choose multiple smart contracts in an application, and then you can hit deploy. And we have HD wallets in the because we don't store anybody's private or public keys, so it's very secure. So you can even integrate it with MetaMask if you so choose. So you don't have to use our HD wallet. And so this is just going over those APIs are automatically generated in Swagger, and you can do API keys, so you can do all that. And then we have Swagger and Redoc, so you can all your stuff can get generated into that. So if you are familiar with, like, we really equate ourselves to what Parse was. I don't know if people remember what Parse was, but they were acquired by Facebook many years ago. But they were a mobile back end as a service, and we're very much similar to the same thing, but just in blockchain, where you're able to auto generate these APIs to communicate with your various applications and SDKs. So we have the transaction and validation resilience. So this is, I won't spend a lot of time on this. All this is on our website. You can go and read into that. But we have a block monitor, so that handles the nonces, and you don't have those kind of collisions and problems that you might normally have from and it automatically fixes those errors. So this is talking more about the block mon and the transactions. So we crawl that blockchain 24/7 to assure the consistency. So this is getting into some of the details of our implementation at the DoD. So we have the consensus quorum nodes, and then we have the OEM Hyperledger Fabric, because Boeing's using Hyperledger Fabric. So the Navy's using consensus quorum. Boeing has their own blockchain as a service, so we have to be able to be interoperable with those. And so SIMBA's chain platform is providing that. And then they both can use the GraphQL that we have to query across those different assets in their supply chain that Boeing's supplying back to Navy, and Navy's being able to look into the assembly and part tracking at Boeing. So we can do this in real time and in a trusted way. So we can search and access those APIs. So with the GraphQL searches the API, allows developers to search application data. This is just showing the off-chaining, how we do the manifests and the hash codes, the file name, and just the metadata that goes with that. And we support IPFS, Ceph, Azure Blob Storage, and we do S3 containers as well. So if you're interested in Amazon side of things, I should say our whole enterprise platform is deliverable on-prem. So we have Kubernetes and Docker that you can take the entire SIMBA chain platform, and if you're looking for an enterprise solution, it can be deployed on-prem. And then, like I said, we have the transaction subscription. So you can subscribe. We have Twilio integration for SMS and email and webhook notifications. So you can subscribe to different things that are happening on chain. Then our auth, we have once again, DoD, we have CAT card integration. So if you're familiar with that, and Auth0, Azure Active Directory for many enterprises. And it handles all the server side signing for the wallets, because on the enterprise side, people aren't, we're usually dealing with the system admins, and their users are not going to understand how to use a blockchain wallet. So that all gets signed on the server side. And once again, SDKs on Python, Java, Node, and .NET. And this is our dashboard. So there's many, pretty extensive, but lots of functionality there to provide that, and the smart contract generation that you get. This is the GraphQL interface. So now we can query, the different levels are like blue, yellow, orange, or blue, green, orange. And that can, if you're familiar with GraphQL, you can, have a supplier part and the relationship of that. So we really are focusing, like Facebook shows relationships of different users and what things you like and things like that. Well, supply chain, we took the same approach, and now we have a graphical way to search and query that by clicking and interactively highlighting those different items and showing those relationships. So showing into the define what your filter is. So, and searching supplier, part, and then the part extra detail, and then being able to query across all that. So this is kind of showing the different levels when we're choosing a part and the part number, and then diving deeper into that part, and then the actual data within inside that part, and showing all the detail. And you can see the transaction hashes that are happening on the blockchain for that. So this is the truffle integration. So if you're interested in that, there's a whole video that we can share with you on that. I won't go into that today. This is Tokes. So we have at Microsoft Inspire, we provided showed our integration with Tokes. Tokes is a multi-billion-dollar restaurant conglomerate, and they handle their own coffee supply chain. And so it was really cool because they they did a study, and a lot of consumers don't really trust the data that come from a lot of the products. So Tokes wanted to add value and assurance back to the supply chain. And so we have this whole app that actually runs now in I think it rolled out to 25 different farms right now, just in November. And basically it provides the farmer, there's good and best coffee, and they wanted to allow for that to be tracked. So it generates a barcode. And then we have the desheller. The desheller has the app that scans the barcode, tracks the return of the deshelled beans to the roaster. The roaster then has the scan barcode, tracks the arrival of the beans. And then we have the warehousing, and then right to the restaurant. And so the cool thing, the next generation, is you can allow tipping back to the actual farmer. So we're really trying to, Tokes is very interested in sustainability in their supply chain, and they really want everybody along the supply chain to add value and make money. And this is another new way of providing this kind of decentralized DApp to provide that tracking and assurance back to the consumer and make that connection back to the farmer. So for the first time, the coffee beans will be tracked from farms to Tokes restaurants. Counterfeit coffee cannot be exchanged on the Takana coffee. Only coffee from Takana can be labeled as Takana, and enables new business models for the farming communities. So that we're really excited. We think this is awesome. It's doubled the pay of the farmers, which is awesome. So we're just really, this has been a really awesome delivery for this year. So more stuff that we've done with the Digital Manufacturing Institute, MXD in Chicago, with Dow Chemical. Supply chain managers have problems of analyzing the risk. And so we were able to do multiple risk assessment on a blockchain to provide targeted communications and implementations of a predictive model of supply chain disruption. We really started in logistics and tracking with DARPA and transfer of secure messages, and really decentralizing the back office infrastructure, not having a single point attack vector. We work with health space, from providing transparency into food and health safety. The Department of Energy, we've got contracts for doing decentralized peer-to-peer smart grids using our SIMBA API. And then, as mentioned, we have Air Force and NAVAIR contracts that extend out 5 years that we've been doing supply chain traceability with them and their suppliers. So we won the first advanced manufacturing Olympics by the Air Force. So we won the gold there. That was exciting, beating Boeing and Stratasys. And we've been the Tech Point Mirror Award of the Year in 2019, and then won the Notre Dame Research Award in 2019 as well. So anyway, thanks. And this is our team continues to grow. So we're excited to, be part of, I'm excited to be part of GBA, and on behalf of all SIMBA and the team here, we're really excited to be part of our view. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up to questions after we're done. So I'm sure a lot of folks will have some great questions. Peter has joined us as well. Peter's got some background in the blockchain and the ag supply chain. Oh, and Joel, if you want to, you can email me that presentation. I'll put it in the Dropbox folder so it'll be available. If you want to, you don't need to.
Sure, yeah, no problem.
All right, so Peter, let me turn the floor over to Peter. So Peter Johnson is he leads our UN SDG community of interest. He's also going to be facilitating the event that we're doing in May at the British Embassy. And I think that was on international trade and international aid. He's a former United States diplomat, but Peter, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, tell them a little bit about what you're doing and how blockchain and supply chain can work together in the ag space.
Well, I think SIMBA Chain just gave a really good example of the ag space of that case in Mexico too, because that's a very similar to what we've been doing with coffee space with other coffee producers, and there's other companies like AgriLedger, AgriUnity doing things like that. But yeah, what we just saw there, that's a really good example of how this can add value when you create a simple tool that can be used, whether it's coffee, whether it's other agricultural tools, a simple, easy tool that tracks that story. Because so, there's been, I think the latest survey was 94% of consumers say if they could see a traceable supply chain, they would pay more for that product of their food supply chain. And 80% of consumers don't trust their food system. So that exact case we just saw from Mexico is a perfect illustration of, wow, these farmers doubled their income now, and they're earning more money. Tux is able to show more reliably where their coffee came from, and that's a clear example of if you have a simple tool that just shows where this product came from, how it was traced, that consumers are interested in knowing where the food comes from, and they are interested in paying more for that. However, it's not only that storytelling aspect of that connecting with consumers, it's also simply that we can find inefficiencies in the supply chain. And I think SIMBA Chain looks like it can do that very much as well. I'm sorry I just caught the very end of your presentation on that. But that aspect of where you're tracing all these aspects, you can see simply, with something needs a cold chain, if it's attached to a smart device, we see the refrigeration was turned off at this point, or this item was sitting in storage, or didn't move from warehouse A to B for this amount of time, or maybe you have multiple suppliers and somebody's blaming somebody else, saying, no, they're the ones who had possession of it. When you had a more opaque supply chain system, maybe other parts of your distribution system are blaming each other for who had possession of something. Now you know exactly who has possession of which item at which point in the supply chain, and you can optimize it based on that. You can see, okay, this organization is the one who had it and moved from this time and date from this point to that. And the reason why this is better than a traditional database is because now, being in the blockchain, as you're all well aware of the advantages of the blockchain in general, since nobody controls it, we can trust that system. We can trust that all these different points in our agricultural supply chain that were entered haven't been changed, they haven't been manipulated. Yes, maybe somebody can lie about the price of what they did or lie about something they've done with their crops. But ultimately, if you have enough participants in the system, that misinformation will be an outlier, and you'll be able to look at what the core of the data is. So this is really allowing us to find inefficiencies and fix them in one side, and the other side to create the whole farm to table, or in the case of coffee, bean to cup story that we can tell the consumers, so they really know where their food comes from and can have more confidence in their food system. That's the very quick summary. Just other quick intros of what I'm doing. The blockchain SDGs community of interest, we do want to get more conversations going. I'll be starting to post more in there in the near future. And if we want to talk more about how blockchain is used for the SDGs, I teach a class in that for Unitar. But I think there's a lot of other experts in this call and in this team that can bring together new ideas for that. And as well, with the ID Foundation, we're bringing together other tech innovators, not just for blockchain, but with other tools as well. Usually blockchain because usually if we integrate this with IoT devices, with drones, with other things, we're looking at IoT or blockchain rather, of how we combine blockchain with something else and come up with solutions to reach the UN SDGs. And so with that, I will go to questions.
Excellent. And well, I'm gonna have Andrew make some remarks, and then we'll open it up to questions about anything. So, and so we're taking this up from a couple of different perspectives. Andrew, you want to share your thoughts, and you can either share your screens or I can pull it up, whichever you prefer.
I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Let's see here. Is that there? Is it can you see?
It is there indeed.
Okay. So we're Diligentiam, and we have a branch of our company called Diligentiam Digital, which helps design blockchain solutions for the small business area, and our engineers will help them, get on a platform like SIMBA. But what we try to do for our customers, and we're dealing mainly with SMEs, is that we're trying to get them to realize that it's not that expensive, it's not heavy lifting to get into a small, manageable blockchain solution for their supply chain. And I'm actually going to Texas, and I have a whole week of lunch and learns with farmers all through the Panhandle, and we'll be talking about solutions for them in December. Hopefully get away from some of the cold in New England and get to not so cold in Texas. But we utilize the tax code both in the United States, and we can utilize it internationally to help pay for training for people in this area. We've done that in the States. There are various programs that will pay for training. We can even get grants. We can even use the tax code to get credits or create losses that can get refunds or and get cash infusions that can pay for blockchain implementation. So what do I mean by that? Many companies over the last 3 or 4 years have done quite well, and they've paid money into the U.S. Treasury or into their government's Treasury Department, and in the form of taxes. Well, the CARES Act actually has some unique features in it that allows us to go back and get that money that was paid in previous years and actually get cash, a treasury check. Like we just got a software company, about $20 million in the Virginia area, a little bit under $20 million in gross revenue. We just did 1 year and we got them $137,000 check, and they just got it the other day. So, and they expect to get more because we did it for 4 years. So that's a good amount of cash infusion for them, for the owner. That a lot of these companies are pass-through entities, and it really passes through to the individual owners, and it really can help their own personal tax returns and help them create wealth and so forth. We do a lot of structuring, without getting into it, creating separate entities to handle supply chains is something that's very wise to do from a risk management point of view, but also from a financial point of view, because you're creating a significant event that allows you to step up value of your IP, maybe step up value of your assets, and of course that will help you improve EBITDA in case you wanted to go out there and get some additional financing, or if you want to get banking financing, we'd help you there as well. So we're working on blockchain, for the SME space. We want to work in a supply chain, and to make this be a turnkey solution, we work with people who are doing sourcing for resources. So guys, we know what's going on with the shifting in the in China and so forth. We know that people are realizing they need to get at least redundant supply chains, or maybe they're beginning to realize that they need to move their supply chain. We've I've read surveys of small businesses on the West Coast that are looking to move their supply chains around the globe. So sourcing is very important for materials. So we do have sourcing partners, and will help get materials routed successfully and inexpensively as possible. Of course, you guys, I don't need to talk to you much about this slide, but the visibility and the security is all very important. In the supply chain, many of our customers are using robotics, picking, sensors. All this information we designed to bring over the blockchain to give them some visibility into this as well. Business intelligence, we use data analytics to determine trends, to help them in the market space, to especially in the forecasting end. Today, forecasting is very challenging because nothing's the same. You can't use historical trends. You really have to try to get an understanding, and you have to utilize big data, and you have to go do a lot of customer cohort and customer analysis. And we have the skill sets to do that with data analytics, so we can get more predictive forecasting models. So I'll skip on that one. Let's just talk about optimizing the process and enhance the business process. We go into a lot of businesses in the SME space, and what I mean by SME space is roughly 5 million to 50 million, but it can get up to 150 million. We go into a lot of small businesses, and they're not organized well. They're not structured well. They have multiple confused product lines, and we'll go in there and we'll develop processes, lean management processes. We'll even take certain products and create entities for them in that area, and to give them more focus to sell products better. So we'll go in and we'll clean up the process to make sure that their logistics plans and strategies are being implemented well and are producing the best return, and actually we tie that back into their financials. We do business evaluations, IP evaluations. Those are all very important in helping get banking financing. We work with several banks to get financing for our small clients to help grow. We do fixed asset appraisals where we can go in and appraise assets to help and appraise IP to help get better financing and more investment capital. So that's it in a real nutshell. Of course, everything I talked about is a little complicated, but it's worth doing. And I just want to tell you that I know a lot of you are small businesses, and I know that you have accounting procedures in place and so forth. You just make sure they're aligned with your goals to help you in your journey to get to grow your business. And if you want to sell it, I want you to know that we're here to help you. And I've even hired people who are QuickBook and accounting that'll go into the QuickBooks or go into the various accounting packages to restructure them to help you sell as well, and cleaning them up as well.
Well, so listen, Andrew, thank you very much. So what you've seen today is that blockchain from a supply chain standpoint, there's a couple different pieces. There's the technology piece, right? There's the infrastructure piece. There's even the strategy piece, right? So you've got right now some experts that really understand this from a whole variety of perspectives. This is your chance to ask questions, right? If you got any questions about blockchain and supply chain, or if you want to kind of get into the blockchain supply chain space, right? The other thing that both of these that actually all three panelists understand is exactly how to do this. So If you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll recognize you, and you can take yourself off of mute. And while I'm doing that, so I got a question for Joel, right? Which is what so Joel, let me ask you something. When you go and look at implementing a blockchain solution, right? What's some of the biggest pushback that you get, and some of the biggest barriers that you have to overcome?
Well, first we have them fill out. We have a 4-question item that's on our website, and it's like, do you need blockchain? So there's 4 questions that talk about the life cycle of an asset, and if they can answer those 4 questions and answer yes to all 4, because they all have to be yes, then that's likely a good blockchain application. So that's kind of the first thing we talk to people about. But other than that, yeah, it's more of like, we really focus on the solution, and blockchain's kind of it's not like the forefront of always of what's being done. It's kind of like part of the technology, but not we don't like really lead with that as the full solution, because that does, obviously there's just a lot of education that's still going on with blockchain to try and people, set, like, it's not Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin's going awesome right now, it's just, doesn't necessarily equal Bitcoin. And so they have to really start understanding that and educate the user about that. But then sometimes we have sophisticated users that really understand what they need. And so it's kind of a mixed bag, I guess.
Peter, what any thoughts in terms of what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that people have in implementing a blockchain solution?
It's really deciding what things they want to capture, what parts of the supply chain are important. I think in the tech side, it's easy to adjust. And as was just said, blockchain is not always the latest technology out there necessarily, but it's really figuring out, what do you want to capture? Are you looking to optimize your supply chain, in which case you want certain pieces of information? If you're looking to connect with your consumers, you want to capture other pieces of information. And then, so first really just figure out what you want to collect, and then how to show those players within your supply chain that it's worth them entering the data. Yeah, so if I'm Whole Foods and I'm telling farmers that I'm buying coffee beans from, I'm only going to buy from you if you track with the system, of course, yes, then they're going to do it because they have to sell to me. But if I'm just a small farmer someone approached me with this new tech solution saying, hey, up in Mexico, they doubled the price of what the farmers were getting, but maybe I'm in El Salvador and I don't know if it's going to help my price or not. Yeah, we've seen some resistance in the sense that we show them examples of where coffee farmers in other places are making more money, or where this has been useful to roll this into their system, but where the farmers on the ground sometimes are also just not seeing the value, and convincing them the value of why they want to use this. Sorry, that's too focused maybe in the agriculture case, but this could be across other sectors as well, of seeing, really just educating the public in general and users of this, of why this is useful for producers, why this is useful for distribution agents, and getting it as something more well known and more widely accepted.
Yeah, Mark Hattel, you made an interesting comment in the chat about farmers wanting to connect or not wanting to connect. You want to share that thought, and I'd love to get the other folks' perspective on that as well. You're on mute.
Yeah, probably the most visible, advancement that you've really seen within track and traceability, especially when it comes to food supply chain, is the food trust network that was built and is run by collaboration between Walmart and IBM. And it really does a phenomenal job of what it was originally set out to do, is because we wanted to have that that transparency and that traceability from farm to fork throughout the supply chain. And Walmart's driver, really their interest in wanting to put this through, was for product recall. When you have an outbreak of listeria, they want to be able to find out where it came from. And under the previous environment, That took probably 10 days, assuming good record keeping, which is not a good thing to assume always. Um, it basically took it down to a matter of minutes that they could basically sit there and have that granular tracing of the farm to fork. So what they have done is they've made a lot of investments as far as in capital as well as in talent in this. And so basically, as Walmart is want to do, they basically say if you want to be part of our supply chain, you have to join this network. And a lot of distributors and a lot of farmers really don't want to have to be forced to do that. A lot of them may say, this is only a portion of our annual production. And to a point that Peter actually pointed out in the chat as well, is they're also imposing a lot of these, fairly complex tools and requirements if they are going to join this food trust. And I don't think they are saying deliberately that join this or you're not going to do any business with us, but that's certainly implied. And if you talk to anybody that has basically told Walmart no, they do so at their peril. So
Right. Well, and so Mark, that's a great point, and I want to kind of flip to the opposite side. So you're dealing with a Walmart, a big sort of central entity like that. But Andrew, you said something that raised a question in my mind. You're going out to talk to all these farmers. You've got all these sort of like lunch and learns. What's the value proposition, right? When you talk to these farmers, what is it you're talking to them about? Because I can see if Walmart comes to them and says you got to jump on this this blockchain thing, or I can see why Walmart would want to do it to reduce the track and trace, like Mark talked about. But what's the value proposition to the farmers? And then after that, Peter, how does blockchain and supply chain relate to some of the SDGs? And is there investment in funding through the SDG sort of channels? So Andrew, and then Peter, and then if anybody else has a question, feel free to raise your hand.
So the farmers have these co-ops that they go through to sell their products internationally or to bigger food chains and like Warwick. And these co-ops hold on to their money. And part of the value proposition that I've been talking to them about is moving to a blockchain platform and these groups of farmers and away from the co-ops or in parallel with the co-ops and going directly to Walmart by joining their food their blockchain food traceability program.
Got it. And Peter, you want to share a little bit about I know that there's a lot of investment in the SDGs. Is there some overlap connection there, and potentially investment money, and how does the supply chain and the SDGs kind of work together? And then after that, Anna, I'd be happy. Anna's with IBM, so we'd love to hear Anna talk a little bit about IBM and the Food Trust. But Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, if you look at the SDGs, I mean, of course, the UN Compact, that was an agreement to be made about what our goals are for 2030. And I know the US, we've backed out of the Paris Accords. We're less part of a lot of these things than others are, but this is still a guiding thing globally for what our goals are for environmental, ethical, other goals of what we want to achieve. And SDG number 12 is responsible production and consumption. So that's the one that relates most to looking at supply chains. SDG 12.3 is specific to reducing food waste. That's what I've been working more around, that specific area. But overall, the SDG 12, that's something, again, on responsible consumption and production. So if we have traceability, if we can show where things have came from, how it was produced, tell the whole story of that product, that's where that relates the most. In regards to funding, of course, all the UN agencies, the World Bank, major development banks, the SDGs are a guiding force for them in deciding what their funding is, and they make their decisions saying, hey, this is part of SDG XYZ, or which SDGs are being met. These are the metrics they measure their projects by, as well as responsible consumption and production in regards to traceability of food supply chain specifically. The European Commission has made a big push on the farm to fork effort of showing traceability of food supply chains. So on the one hand, they do have the side where in developing countries they can have funding available to help create this traceability. On the other hand, the European Commission is looking at it more as a mandate as well of we want food to be traceable. You need food to be traceable in Europe. And so if you're looking to sell food into the European marketplace, that's simply something where that traceability is going to be a must-have, not only because of the mandates, but as well because European consumers are demanding it.
That's awesome. And then Anne, why don't you tell us a little bit about the IBM Food Trust, and then after that, Morgan, I know you're doing some work in this space, so I'd be thrilled if you could share some of that information with us as well, Morgan. So Anne, and then Morgan.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Biazetti. I'm a distinguished engineer at IBM, and I have been working with multiple blockchain solutions. So we have IFT, IBM Food Trust, which supports the end-to-end trackability and traceability of food. We also have a new solution, it's called Blockchain Transparent Supply, which is being used in multiple smaller, if you will, blockchain solutions to track seafood, to track coffee, to track tire distribution. So many different solutions built from that asset. Also trying to simplify some of the discussions that happened before in terms of facilitating for people to join the network and start to use it. And we also have the Trade Lens solution, which is a partnership with Maersk for global trade. This solution is a huge network with hundreds of participants. We have ports all around the world. We are growing also in terms of carriers and really providing this end-to-end visibility for the shipments that are done in global trade, as well as supporting the documentation that is related to the shipment. So all the bills of ladings and invoices and certificates that are associated with shipment are all also tracked through the blockchain. So if there's interest, I can share more details, but that's kind of a summary.
Anna, would you be so kind as to put your contact information in the chat, so if people want any more information, they can reach out to you or whoever you think would be appropriate?
Sure, I'll do that. Thanks.
That'd be awesome. And then Morgan, you want to share with us a little bit about what you're doing? And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just say just very quickly that one of the reasons why I was sort of driven to pursue this organization and the work I do generally is that I like to work with technology companies, that especially smaller and intermediate sized companies that are, really doing novel and interesting technology that applies to very vexing policy problems, right? There's so much that can be brought to bear from technology to fix day-to-day problems we have in our sort of societies and the way our government thinks about and manages policy problems and solutions. And one of the problems is that the bigger companies, no offense to our distinguished speaker a second ago with IBM, but most of the smaller and innovative medium-sized companies don't have the ability as IBM does to sort of educate and engage the policymakers around the world with American Congress or the European Union and folks like that. So I really enjoy engaging with people like many of the folks here on this call and this meeting, because these are incredibly useful technology tools to help real life. And I think I'm sure most people on this call, if you watch a congressional committee hearing that has to do with technology, there's one I think today, it's very clear how little our lawmakers understand technology and how few engineers work in government or at least in the policy side. And I've gotten to know the small number of offices in Congress that really care and want to engage, but boy, most of them don't. And this is a bipartisan dearth of knowledge. So being in the position that I'm in, it's always so fascinating to hear these really good solution-oriented technological breakthroughs, but how few people in day-to-day life and also in our sort of policy-making community, I think, really understand it in any real sort of sophisticated way, even in any sort of superficial way. That's almost a lot to ask as well. So, I just want to say, I'm here and I'm sort of engaged in this intersection between policy and technology, and I'm just been really fascinated by the back and forth today so far.
And Morgan, I want to encourage you to reach out. You and I need to talk some more because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But one of the things that I want to talk about specifically is if you come to the GBA site, you come down to under association working groups.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things, so we've got a supply chain working group. So healthcare, intellectual land titling, license permitting. I will say this, our supply chain working group is set to do all kinds of incredible things, but the guy who's leading it, Randy, phenomenal guy, but he's just, he's our Atlanta chapter lead. He's the US East Coast lead. He's our global chapter guy and the supply chain working group. He just got married, got a new house, and he started a new company. So looking to find some way to offload some of his responsibilities. So we're looking for somebody to lead the supply chain working group. And then we also have the supply chain food working group, right? And then also another working group that's really important is our sustainable environmental stewardship working group. So Priya leads that. She's out of the UK. Her background is in aquaculture, I guess, agriculture and aquatics. She does a lot of stuff with fisheries and stuff like that. So the way these different working groups function is anybody in government can do it for free. And they come to these groups and they say, here's a problem, here's a solution, here's what we're looking to do. And then the private sector folks that are part of the group, they say, here's our solution, here's our white paper, here's our demo, right? And it's a phenomenal place, and they create the solutions there. And then what we do is we then deploy those solutions, right? If you come under association to active chapters, we then can deploy those solutions in these locations around the world, right? So especially when you look at the GBP and how we're trying to build that giant interconnected fabric across multiple blockchains, the chapters create local communities and relationships with government, right? And then the private sector folks essentially are building out the solutions, and we're interconnecting the whole thing together. So it's a phenomenal framework to help companies and individuals and government officials all around the world connect, communicate, and collaborate around blockchain solutions. So that's a little bit about that. Yeah.
Gerard, this is Scott. So
Yeah.
there is an initiative going called the DBOM, the Distributed Bill of Materials. You're familiar with SBOMs, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. It was started by Unisys. It's being chaired by Red Lion, by Linux Foundation. I think Northrop's in there as well, and a couple other really big companies. Do me a favor and shoot me an email outside of here. I'll drop it to you privately in chat, and I'll get you connected up with Chris Blask, who is heading the DBOM consortium. You two may want to talk.
All right. Sounds good. Juan Cabrera, are you on the call? I know you're on the last call. I'm not sure if you're on this call. So Juan Cabrera leads our international trade working group. So he may be somebody to connect. All right. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts, uncertainties, doubts?
Just throw them in the email. That's all.
All right. So what I'm going to do, just so that everybody knows, is when we're done, I'm going to leave the chat open so anybody can scrape anything off of there. I'm also going to put this link. Give me a minute to get. I'm going to put a link in there in just a moment to the recording of this. Here we go. Give me 1 second. Supply chain. Copy Dropbox link. All right, so this link right here will have the recording of this event plus the entire chat. All right. Cool. Scott, let me just see if there's anything else here in the chat that people want to talk about. Mark, most effective having a conversation with stakeholders. Okay. All right. So any final questions? So we got Joel. Joel's got a phenomenal platform that allows people to build blockchain solutions with low code type information. So Joel, once again, if you don't mind dropping your contact information in there, your website. Remember, it's a freemium version. So if somebody does not have a lot of blockchain capabilities or expertise, they do need to have some degree of technical expertise, but they can essentially drag and drop and create blockchain solutions, right?
Yep.
And then Peter's got a strong background in terms of the UN international community, SDG, right? So he really has a lay of the land in terms of what the global organizations are doing, especially governments. Peter, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just dropping our links in here as well of our product because we actually also are a supply chain company. So I'm putting that up there as well for the ID track solution. But in general, overall on the governance issues, yes, I'm happy. We'll be trying to get more activities going in the community of interest. Feel free to start posting comments or sending me emails if you have ideas about future SDG related products projects we can work on as well.
Yeah, and the thing that struck me when I was up at the United Nations, I was asked to speak at an event up there. The huge amount of investment money specifically aligned around the strategic development goals. If you're looking at building out a solution, right, connecting to one or more of those SDGs really gives you a platform. And we should do an entire. Oh, so for those of you that don't know, GBA is the official host of the U.S. office of the Global Angel Investment Forum, WBAF, WBAforum.org. Beverly, if you don't mind putting that in there. And the WBAforum.org, this is essentially a group connected to the G20, and they have a ridiculous amount of investment dollars, and they want to invest it in small businesses, and they want to invest it in small businesses that have a social good. So if you're interested in that, we're looking at doing a number of events here in the United States, bringing global investors together to help support U.S. small businesses. And then we've got Andrew Parrish. So,
Gerard, I think what you're showing on your screen, it's not showing on ours, but we're hearing the music in the background, but seeing a beautiful picture of your family.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about the music. But
I see that it's very clear that Gerard did not pass his love of jackets onto his son.
Oh, don't even get me started. But the thing that I wanted to really bring forth from Andrew's perspective is there's a lot of strategy, right? And Andrew, you didn't even talk much about the R&D tax credit, but if people want to pursue this space, right? Jiminy Crickets, by all means. And Andrew, if anybody's curious about how they can kind of organize and strategize, are you willing to talk to them for free to kind of give them some advice on some initial first steps?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So again, go ahead and put your contact information back in. I have watched Andrew and his company go into companies and literally just shake money out of the walls by just looking at how they are organized and structured, and like he said, actually generate treasury checks, which give people the ability to fund research and development efforts. So I'm unbelievably humbled by the quality of people that come together around something like this. Our next The next event that the next two events that we're doing are going to be on December 10th. We're going to do one on decentralized vote, decentralized ID. Hang on a second, let me drop this in here. Events, view all events. December. So we're going a little light for November and December. I haven't been able to do a lot because I've been recovering from surgery, but we have three. We've got decentralized identity for telecom sector. We've got blockchain and elections online symposium. Now this is going to be a fairly longer event from 11 a.m. to 2. And then we've got blockchain and logistics. And then of course we're going to keep the second half of December is going to be pretty light. And then we're not really doing anything Thanksgiving week or anything. So feel free to sign up for those events. Does anybody have any parting thoughts, questions, anything that they want to share with folks before we wrap it up? Was this information helpful for you all?
I want to say absolutely, mainly because the first thing that I've noticed is a lot more attention is being made for technology and specifically blockchain implementation, taking a risk management approach. Risk management tends to, kind of be viewed as a boring kind of methodology, no fun. In fact, removing all the fun out of things that could be a lot of fun in everyday life. But in implementing a new technology, I find it absolutely essential because it takes a brutally practical view of how it's going to be put into place and how it will operate on the ground. So it's refreshing to see this type of, approach being taken on that.
Excellent. Well, listen, our goal is to get you the highest quality information we can and create the environment where you guys can connect. And, when I started GBA in 2016, I was going to a bunch of meetups, right? And, there was a big buzz. It was the ICO craze. Everything was going great. And I saw that there were a ton of people that were really interested in blockchain, but there was nowhere for them to go. And so what I said was, if we just kind of create a place where people can connect, communicate, and collaborate with all these brilliant people, if we can just get them together and get them organized, they can figure out how to solve these problems, and we can unleash an incredible amount of talent, an incredible amount of resources, and really that's what we've seen happening. So I'm Joel. I can't tell you how humbled I am, and Andrew, and just all you guys, how humbled I am that you guys have hooked up your wagon to this train, but really appreciate it. All the speakers and all of you all for attending. Thank you all very much for being part of this today.